drinking and driving? In the military, we hear about it at safety days, commanders' calls, your local news. But what is it, and why is drinking and driving so serious? Today, we're going to discuss the effects that alcohol has on your body, how those effects in turn affect you behind the wheel, and why, even though we know the problems that we can have, people still continue to drive drunk. Let us begin by discussing the effects that alcohol has on your body. Number one, alcohol impairs your brain. What does this lead to? Bad decision making. Whether it be driving an automobile, doing something you wouldn't normally do, or ending up in one of those videos on YouTube that says, hey, watch this. Generally, alcohol is involved, which leads you to make those bad choices. Number two, it lowers your reflex time, which means when something happens, you're going to have a slower response. For instance, if I'm walking and something walks in front of me, if I'm not drunk, I would stop rather than run into the thing that walked in front of me. However, if you're intoxicated, you're not going to have that time, that reflex time, to stop. You will run into the object. And then next, it lowers your inhibitions. It makes you more vulnerable to peer pressure, where before you would not do this thing, but now that you're drunk, your decision making is down, your reflexes are down, and you have the pressure of your friends around you, may lead you to make those bad decisions. As I stressed, this only takes a little bit of alcohol. Most people think I can have 1, 2, 3 beers or a small amount of hard alcohol and I'll be fine. But really, in order for everything I just discussed here to happen, you only have to have a very small amount of alcohol in your blood. These are just a few of the effects that the impairment can have on your body. Let's talk about how that affects you behind the wheel. Impaired driving. Once again, we start out with the impairment of your brain. It gives you the inability to make simple decisions, such as driving a vehicle while drunk. Most people would not do that willingly, but once your decision making is gone, you put your keys in the ignition and away you go. It also gives you the inability to think ahead to what's next. Most of us are thinking, as we're driving a vehicle, what could happen, what's happening around us, where when you're intoxicated, you're on a very single track mind. You're not thinking about what the repercussions could be of your decisions. All right, next is your reaction time is greatly decreased. As I discussed earlier, if you're walking and an individual walks in front of you, if you're not drunk, you'll stop. If you are, you'll probably continue walking into them. Now put that into a vehicle. A child runs out in front of that vehicle, you're intoxicated with your reaction time decreased, you're probably not going to stop your vehicle. It's going to take a longer time for you to respond to a situation than you would without alcohol. And then the lowered inhibitions. You may have had a plan before you went out that I was going to have this individual drive or I was going to call a taxi, but now that you're intoxicated, your plan falls through, your inhibitions are lowered, may lead you to get into the vehicle and drive drunk. It may also allow your friends to convince you that driving drunk would be okay. We're just going a few blocks, you only had a few beers. What is the problem? Alright? Now, based on the presented information, it would seem pretty obvious why you would not want to drive intoxicated. But people still continue to do it. Why? Number one is poor judgment before you even begin drinking. As I brought up earlier, your friends convincing you only had a few beers, you only had a little bit of alcohol. However, as I said in the beginning, it only takes a very small amount of alcohol to affect you. So while people may say, I can handle 2 or 3 beers, may not be the case, because as you hear even in advertisements all over the TV, buzz driving is drunk driving. You may not be fully drunk, however, your reaction time, your decision making, all of that is impaired at this point, which leads you unable to operate a motor vehicle. Rationalizing driving drunk. I brought it up earlier. I've only had a few beers, I've only got to go a few blocks, I only have to drive my car out of the parking lot across the street. It does not matter. Driving drunk is driving drunk. Okay, some people like to rationalize it. Rationalizing it does not change it from what it is. Alright, and the last one is your plan falls through. And we see this all the time in the military. You go out with a plan, your plan falls through, which leads people to think, you know what, I can make it home. I'm just going to drive home. I don't want to leave my vehicle here because this is a high crime area, or I don't want to leave my vehicle here, I'd rather take it home. Right? And what happens there? You get in the vehicle, you drive away, and who knows what lies ahead of you because you decided to drive drunk. As you can see, consuming alcohol can severely impair and inhibit functions of the human body. This in turn directly affects how you operate a motor vehicle. Some people ignore the signs of impairment. However, just because you ignore that does not change the fact you are driving drunk and taking your life and possibly the lives of others into your hands. Right? Consuming alcohol is not a bad thing, but staying safe and responsible is. Remember, we all have limits. Don't think that just because you have one means that you are not intoxicated. Have a plan, have a backup in case your plan falls through, and stay safe.